So, that's Star Fox news, huh? I know the majority of my audience is already on the loop, but I can think of at least a few people who definitely aren't. My parents, my siblings, and my friend Joe, who only plays Stardew Valley and Skyrim, which honestly, I love that for them. So I'm gonna give the shortest possible summary of the Star Fox series, and let me know when you spot the problem. The original Star Fox was released in '93, and it was good, but it was clear that the hardware of the Super Nintendo console was indeed limiting the idea. 4 years later was Star Fox 64 on the N64, a reboot of the original game taking advantage of a stronger console. It's critically acclaimed as one of the greatest games of all time, and honestly, I kind of agree. It single-handedly cemented the Star Fox series as one of Nintendo's staples, one that would appear in Smash Bros. And the Mario movie for some reason. After that was Star Fox Assault, which people were mixed on, and then Star Fox Adventures, which people were mixed on, and then Star Fox Command, which nobody played, so things were rough for a while. But after that was a remake of Star Fox 64 on the 3DS, which gave it a variety of upgrades for both the single-player and multiplayer modes. This was the version I experienced in my childhood, and I can confirm, yes, it's really good. And then was Star Fox Zero, a reimagining of Star Fox 64 with some new mechanics. Zero is quite a bit different from 64, but also, people didn't really like it for a variety of reasons. And now, 10 years later, they've just recently announced a new game simply titled Star Fox, a remake of Star Fox 64 for the Switch 2. You may have noticed the problem. They keep making Star Fox 64 again. And let me tell you, people sure do have opinions on that. The prevailing view I see most often is that the game still looks fun and has some cool new features, but did they have to do another remake of Star Fox 64? And that's about where my stance on the matter is too. 64 is an amazing game, and to an extent I even think having multiple remakes of it over the course of these 30 years is warranted. Most of the fan base has been shaped around 64 to the point where the subreddit's banner is exclusively modeled after 64, which I mostly find funny before anything else. But I was kind of hoping for a 64 inspired game, one that took the same general mechanics, expanded them a little bit, and created new stories and levels around them, not just literally the same thing again. So what is a Star Fox fan to do in these dark times, where they've surely replayed all the old games 10 times by now, and most of the old games are already Star Fox 64 anyways? Well, my answer is usually, don't rely on the massive company to get the games you want, look to indie games. Wild Blue Skies is a game by Chuhai Labs, based in Kyoto, Japan, and founded by one Giles Goddard, an industry veteran who's a programmer on the original Star Fox on the Super Nintendo, and programmed that interactive Mario face in Mario 64. So he's kind of a big deal. Wild Blue Skies is very clearly a new iteration on Star Fox, with an anime-inspired aesthetic and their own characters. The game is slated for release sometime this year, and for the most part all we can do is look at these super cool trailers, but they do have a demo on Steam, out right now, that you can just try for yourself. So what can we glean from the demo? Well, turns out this video is going to be very different than what I thought it was. And probably different than what you thought too. Because now it's time to talk about how a really cool, fun game can also have a really terrible demo. I want to start by pointing out the things that I like, which is that they very clearly know what makes Star Fox fun. They have the banter and expressive voiceover. They have a short, snappy level with a cool, distinct theme and set of hazards. They have a boss at the end with distinct mechanics and goofy cartoon villain dialogue.
I've had it up to my gills with you!
You can boost through the level, you can brake, you have a bunch of ways to avoid enemy fire, but you have to position yourself well to both hit the enemies and not take damage in return. One part of the controls players might find odd is that the normal shot and the charge shot are on different buttons, but I actually like this a lot. It means you have to be that little bit more deliberate when deciding if you want to spam laser fire or wind up the charge shot. You need to decide between one or the other in that moment of action, and I think that's really cool. Okay, so what's the problem? Well, this demo starts us out on the second level of the game, which is a really confusing choice in my opinion. The first level is the one that's designed to teach us the controls and get us used to the mechanics. But for this demo, they just kind of throw you in the deep end. You can only learn the controls from the pause menu, and even then, you have to, look for it yourself. They don't tell you to look in the pause menu, you just kind of have to flail about until you discover them. Like an archaeologist digging for dinosaur bones, except you're just interacting with the most basic functions of the medium. Now, of course, the demo is only one level, and it's a really short level. It's like 4 minutes. So once I figured out, how to control it, I wanted to play through it a second time to get a better idea of what it'd really be like, if you know what you're doing. And for some reason, you can't skip this slow-ass opening cinematic, so I had to sit through it again. It's not that big of a deal, but it is annoying. Even with the second run though, I was noticing enemies are really tanky and kind of hard to hit. And that's not just a skill issue on my end. I saw a bunch of big-time Star Fox fans who played the demo saying the exact same thing. I think all you'd have to do is make the laser hitbox slightly bigger and have the base laser without any upgrades do a bit more damage than it does right now. Another control thing, since the charge shot is on a different button, you can just hold the fire button to rapid shoot lasers instead of having to repeatedly jam the X button in a way that's really uncomfortable. Except for some reason, the auto fire setting is off by default, which made me think that you do have to jam the X button in a way that's really uncomfortable. I didn't realize this until after my second run through, and I didn't really feel like doing a third. Partially because I knew it'd be the same level over again, and partially because I didn't want to see the slow-ass opening cinematic for a third time. So I was just kinda done with it. That all might seem like I have a negative opinion of the game, but honestly, not really. I think these issues are overall easily fixed, and the core of the action is still good. The basic mechanics flying around feels good, it looks great, it sounds great, and if the other levels can stand out as distinctly as this one does, then I'm not too overly worried. In fact, my main criticism would be that it's still too similar to Star Fox 64 and not doing enough to be different, but you know what? They're still making it more different from 64 than Nintendo is, who decided that they should literally just make 64 again. So overall, my message with this video isn't necessarily that this will surpass the new Star Fox game. Maybe it won't, but I also don't think there's anything stopping them from living in coexistence with each other. And if you don't like that the new game is literally 64 again, this is a title from an indie studio that is slightly different but demonstrates knowledge of what is appealing about the series in the first place. And if you don't like that either, your other option, I don't know, probably grovel in despair.